There's a journey, but once you break that barrier, you can move on to the next. So that's one thing we realized, and that's what we're working on with the small businesses that we're training. Women have that innate ability to run their business. I mean, and they borrow with like a long-term intention. They definitely have a plan for the money that they take.
So today we're joined in conversation by Ms. Suzanne George, Associate Vice President of the Muthoot Pappachan Group's only listed entity, Muthoot Capital Services Ltd, and the Impact Director of the company's CSR initiative, Restart India. Before taking a lead role in the group's star performer with MCSL, being one of the fastest growing NBFC in the country, she has gone through a challenging stint of over 5 years with various Indian and global financial services and consulting majors like Deloitte, Haskins Sells, R Batliboi and Company, and BSR and Company. Thank you so much for joining us, Tina. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Thank you. Pleasure's mine too.
Great. And just to jump right ahead into the conversation, so as the Impact Director of Restart India, how are you helping empower the communities across the country under this initiative?
Okay, I'll just give a brief understanding about Restart India and why we got into it. So we work with small businesses. So I think, like, as far as Muthoot is concerned, small businesses it's like our oxygen. So and we have about 5 million customers across the country. Now, when the lockdown hit, we see these customers almost every few days. When the lockdown hit, like, there was no way of keeping in touch with them. So as a personal gesture, we just started reaching out to them just to see how they were doing. And we realized that, at that point, they're not really asking about their money. They're wondering, like, what's happening to their business, like what are they going to do next, like how are we going to face the future. And to the extent possible, we were guiding them on certain matters related to financial services and wherever we could understand, like beyond that area. But we realized that they needed professional guidance. I mean, we needed that kind of help during the lockdown, and we got it because we had the access to those means. But what about these small businesses? Where do they go to? So we realized that, we needed to give them that guidance from experts in the industry. And that's how we started reaching out to people, industry stalwarts from various sectors like tax, finance, human resources, retail, technology, marketing, branding, all of this. And who've got like immense experience working with small businesses. So we empaneled all of them as our mentors, and we started this website called www.restartindia.in, and we've invited small businesses to ask their queries on those websites. So during that initial time when schemes were coming out, like we're in lockdown 1, lockdown 2, we're not sure like where it's gonna go. We were like, there were questions just pouring in from small businesses like all over the country on what we can do next. So our initial focus was on a direct Q&A with these small businesses through our response network, which were consulting firms, and then our mentors who were addressing these questions that were raised by small businesses. Aside from that, we've been creating awareness on the impact that small businesses make within our country. That one of the ways that we do that is through events that we've been holding on social media. So even there, we invite small businesses to ask questions if they can. Like, they can visit either our page or Restart India page, Muthoot page, or Inc. pages. So Inc. is one of our partners for this initiative that we've been having with their background in knowledge and innovation that they bring about. So through our live events, we engage with small businesses as well as buyers from small businesses to help them know why small businesses are so unique in our country. And over time, since we've been having these conversations with small businesses, one particular thing that has really stood out is that they really need to understand the importance of going digital. While we can send messages to them, on like, yes, it is important to go digital, but they need that kind of hand-holding. So we've come up with a program where we train small businesses over a 5-day training course on WhatsApp itself. on how they can use the specific tools and take their business online. And these are very simple. They're also in the vernacular language, because we can't speak to them in English. They're not going to grasp it. They need to understand in their own language. So these are the initiatives that we've been having under Restart India. Aside from that, of course, Muthoot has come up with certain products that specifically cater to small businesses in light of the lockdown and everything else. So yeah.
And I couldn't agree with your point that, even small businesses are a crucial part of a country like India, which is so culturally diverse, as well as many companies which have gone online, they still require the, logistics of the small businesses across the country to be, able to function. And only just reaffirm that. And now coming back to the conversation, so you already are a budding entrepreneur yourselves. So how has this initiative of Restart India enriched your experience of working with small enterprises? Like you mentioned that, the way they are working and the way you're aligning mentors and mentees also for them to, scale up their initiatives.
In terms of enlightenment, I think I've been like spellbound by the kind of things that small businesses do, because they're the real entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. So just a fun, like a conversation that we've had with a few of the small businesses. Like I said, initially we were reaching out to all these small businesses. So we realized that instead of hearing things from us, they need to hear success stories from their peers. Because we can say, okay, this small business, like this entrepreneur did this differently, why don't you try it? But that's not going to resound with them when they're going through a hard time. They need to hear it from someone like themselves. Like, okay, if I'm a baker in this town, I need to hear it from another baker, like what they've done differently. Right. Or if I used to do stitching business, now nobody is coming into my shop, then how do I move into mask making or sanitizer manufacturing? I need to hear it from somebody else. That only that will bolster my confidence. So one small business that we had reached out to she was a baker in a town in Kerala. Her name is Ruvisha. I always speak about her because she's an inspiration for us as well. During those first few days of the lockdown, she speaks about how initially she used to supply to a bakery nearby, and she just used to sell maybe 2 to 3 cakes a day. Right. But when she realized that nobody is coming in to buy her cakes, she thought, why not use WhatsApp? It's in her hands. She uses it every day. How can she leverage this? She talks about how she made a group. It grew from 10 to 20 to 200 people. She posts menus every day, posters about her cake, photos. She started making broadcast lists. So this is a simple innovation for her business. I mean, she's just using a tool that's accessible every day. But she speaks about how she moved from just making 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cakes a day to a stage where now she has to reject orders because she's overwhelmed now. So this particular story is something that, it's not just something that a small business is listening to. Like, I hope all businesses everywhere take this as an inspiration, because we can't neglect even something as simple as your status updates, that it goes a long way to speaking about how you've gone digital. So this is one way that Restart India has enriched my experience. I mean, it's just made me so much confident about the agility and the prowess of these small businesses. So and that's kind of what keeps us going every day on, like adding more value to small businesses.
Wonderful. And these are the small, I would say, ingenious ideas that only a local person would understand. And like a context-based thing, which only a person who's been into that format, that location, that locality, that I would say vernacular also would understand that this is something that could work for them and not, in other places.
Yeah. So one thing, again, the same person said as she graduated from, brick and mortar to WhatsApp, that gave her confidence to use more digital tools. Like then you get to use Facebook, Instagram. I mean, there's a journey, but once you break that barrier, you can move on to the next. So that's one thing we realized, and that's what we're working on with the small businesses that we're training.
Great. And now going back to your personal experience, which has been in these leading, I would say, finance and consulting firms, but does this experience come in handy, or I would say the exposure that you've had in these roles to the work that you're doing right now, in terms of bringing those processes and I would say that system-oriented approach to these problems that are there on ground?
Yeah, so I joined the family business a few years ago. If you look at my background, I may not fit like the typical definition of a business owner. My strength is in accounting, tax, regulatory services, which I think most people would find like extremely boring. But I transitioned into the business over time. So when I started, there were two specific areas I was looking at. I mean, we're predominantly a retail financial services organization, but we have a small portfolio of corporate loans. So I was looking at that as well as social projects in our listed company, Muthoot Capital Services. Now, and over time, I also moved into other projects like new products, specifically catering to small businesses or their saving habits, etc. When I was working elsewhere, I hadn't really set a date on or like a timeline of when I would join the business, but I knew that at some point of time I'd do it. So there were projects that I was taking on at that point in time that had our business in view. We work in a highly regulated environment, so the time that I spent in say taxation regulatory services helped me understand our regulatory landscape. And being an NBFC, we're always under the focus of the RBI. So I think the time that I've spent reading, drafting documents during my early days, like it gives me that patience to do it for the new products that I'm working on, like going through all those process documents, the workflow, agreements that run into hundreds of pages, business forecasts. So I have a keen eye to go through them, and I do spend the time looking through all of this. And I guess in many ways, like I'm a stickler for time and deadlines. So to the extent possible, I make sure our team's work is organized.
True, but then again, I would still say that these ideas and things that you have done, like the documentation process of it, the time management part of it, is something that we really require in the social sector as per se. Because even if you work with those small enterprises, documentation is something that they really are scared about, and that's the first step for them to actually be able to scale.
And even with that experience, see, small businesses also need help in improving their processes. So they don't realize it till something happens and something shakes them, or they need to scale up and they've reached a point where they realize, oh, they don't have the compliance necessary. So these are things that we do talk to them about, like only somebody who has an awareness, who knows that, you need these things, will be able to advise them on it. So, yeah.
And like you mentioned that it's just not until that something shakes that people realize the importance of what's there and what's supposed to be. So in that context, talking about the current pandemic, or I don't know if we're still out of it or in it, the COVID-19 thing. So like many other instances have shown that determined women are capable of helping economy and those around them, like a whole community around them. So why do you think that we as a society wake up to this sort of a reality only in these challenging times, and not something, across the, I would say, year or otherwise, when women could be leading enterprises and running these institutions in the first place?
So you're right. Like COVID shook everyone. I mean, if you look back at last year, I think it was the saddest year for many people. I don't think anyone will want to even think about last year. But, the world keeps moving. Businesses have to sustain. So right now they're only thinking about bills for today, payments for today, make money for today, planning for something that was so remote as COVID, it doesn't catch anyone's attention. And I mean, you need a lot of effort and resources to put into planning for something that we couldn't even think about something like COVID. So even if we're doing something like, what are we foreseeing? What are we planning the changes for? But I'd say that COVID was a catalyst. Like for those who rely purely on brick and mortar, traditional ways of doing business, I mean, their customer base will thin out over time. I think that's a reality that everyone has to accept. So, and the next generation of buyers is tech savvy. They'll want to consume things sitting wherever they are in their homes. They just want to look at things on their phone. They want to make a decision at the click of a button, just using a finger, that's it. But so that said, COVID has helped businesses go digital faster. And we know about big businesses, but I'm saying that about small businesses too. With the right kind of training, like they'll be able to accept this kind of this reality that they need to do it. And the other thing is, women have a keen business sense. Like they can be excellent entrepreneurs. I mean, we work with about 2 million women entrepreneurs through our microfinance entity. And what we've noticed is they have a clear long-term vision for whatever they are borrowing for. I mean, or what they are doing their business for. If they're doing it, they're not just doing it for their personal satisfaction. They're doing it to educate their child, to get their child married, for their family. So they have this this kind of foresight. So when it comes to managing money, like with the right kind of tools and capability, they'll be able to do it. So if women need to really grow, be leaders, and I'm talking in the context of small businesses because really that's our focus. There are just two areas that I feel are really important. And one is to make them comfortable digitally, and the other is financially. Like they can do it. They just need somebody to train them and make them realize the importance of it. So yeah, just get these two straightened out and you'll get like a super businesswoman.
Great. And that is totally true. And I've seen firsthand for the organization that I've also interacted with and, had a chance to explore more about their work. Leading these enterprises, have that long-term vision, have that sustainable plans for communities. And it's more or less driven by some internal motivation for helping like a larger good, rather than just, a personal motivation that they would have. And again, there's one issue that comes for a lot of women as entrepreneurs, be it small or large, is about funding. Because A, they do not have that much of collateral with them. B, the confidence of institutions in women starting something which they have not been, doing beforehand is something that comes as a hindrance. But in this context, you already have this project by the name Atmanirbhar Mahila Gold Loan Initiative. So how does that come into picture to, push them, give them the first nudge or, first push for their projects?
So before I touch upon Atmanirbhar Mahila Gold Loan, I just like to mention that many of our products are tailored to suit women's needs. We have 4 NBFCs within our fold. So one of them deals with gold loan and business loan, the other one vehicle finance, the other one microfinance, and the other one housing finance. They're just kept separate for regulatory purpose. And there are products within each of these companies that with terms that are favorable for women, like to help them in their business. Like for example, microfinance is all women entrepreneurs. But for them, we also have products that help them save in gold. So it's not just, we're not just a lending organization. We look at all of their money matters. So there aren't suitable products out there that women can understand. I mean, they're not going to go through anything like a debenture or a mutual fund. I mean, you don't even get it, but you tell them to save in gold and save in an affordable manner, like 10 rupees a day, 1 rupee a day. I mean, we offer even that low savings plans. So these are things that they understand. So we often come up with products for women in general. One of which now is the Atmanirbhar Mahila Gold Loan. So like I said, women have that innate ability to run their business. I mean, and they borrow with like a long-term intention. They definitely have a plan for the money that they take. But then, and they have this, this clear intention that they want to repay. If they borrow, then when they know that there's a due date, they keep the money aside, like for it. So they don't default. So with that intention, like when they need funds at that particular time, they may resort to borrowing from money lenders who may charge them a higher rate, and you're just putting them through that kind of burden. That's why we've come up with this product. It's for value up to rupees 1 lakh, 99,999, and they can borrow for up to 6 months. So this is our new product.
And lastly, just to close the conversation, so any closing remarks on, your opinion about these entrepreneurs that you've been dealing with, or Restart India as a project? Where do you, want to take it further? How do you envision it going ahead?
Yeah. So our very, very long-term vision is to be like a small business ecosystem. So like Muthoot on its own is addressing the financial needs of small businesses. Restart India right now is helping them use those tools that they have already to take their business digital. But if there is a place where small businesses can go for any need that they have, like, okay, I need to start a website, or I need to manage my social media page, but I cannot spend that kind of money as we may spend on a creative agency or a designer, anything of that sort. But like these small purchases that they need to do. So that's the plan for Restart India, but that's really still in the works.
Great. And I think on that note, we throw the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Tina. It's been a pleasure to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Deepak.